Good morning, Malcolm Nance.
Good
Yes.
morning. How
Good,
are you?
good morning, sir. After watching last night, what would you say is the relative bugginess of the target of the Russian investigation?
I'm pretty sure that this categorizes into mega bugs. We are in a completely new space here with regards to the president's behavior. And, at first we just thought it was a normal cacophony of unhinged rants. But then if you watch CNN, James Clapper, the former director of
Yeah.
National Intelligence,
Yeah.
had some things to say about it. I don't know if you have the audio of that
Oh, yeah.
today, but
Yeah, we played it already. I mean, the phrase "duty to warn" keeps coming to mind, Malcolm. Whether it's psychiatrists or intelligence professionals like yourself, from both sides of the aisle, right? Military leaders. I mean,
yeah,
yeah,
you're absolutely right. And I mean, for Clapper to go, he's been pulling his punches all year,
yeah.
and appears to have sent him to a place where he just could not deny it anymore. That he worries that the president actually has access to the nuclear code, and
Well, and how
that's
they're designed to act quickly, and that not much could stop him, right?
absolutely. And the president is a nuclear monarch, and he could end North Korea in 35 minutes with absolutely no controls whatsoever.
Wow.
And for that to go right to Clapper's head to where he would go on national television and say that he was concerned about this as the former top intelligence officer in America tells you a lot about where that speech went last night. It went off the rails.
Malcolm, the other thing everybody's talking about is obviously this New York Times piece about the war basically between McConnell and Trump. But one of course the most striking things to me is that he's swearing at McConnell about his how did he put it? His it's not protecting him, quote unquote, from the Russia investigation.
Yep.
An innocent person doesn't say that.
Yeah.
This is now how many times have we heard this story, right?
Well, I was reading that story to the to Mrs. Nance, and then all we could do was stop, drop our mouths open, and look at each other and think, he's angry that the Senate would not guarantee stopping the Russia investigation, and was angry that they didn't kill the Russia sanctions bill. Right? I
Right.
mean, this is just absolutely the behavior of a guilty party. Now, I don't have any special inside information, but I'm pretty good at analyzing, the intelligence indicators, as they say. And the intelligence indicators here are: you have a target that has a private interest. That means that information must not be exposed. And whether it's financial, whether it's personal, whether it's espionage, we don't know. But it just, again, someone last night in the color commentary on the speech said Mueller needs to step it up,
Right.
for the defense of the nation. We need to get this all out before something happens. An attempt at firing Mueller, or getting to the point where we go to war. But something needs to happen because this target is beyond buggy. I mean, this target is acting phenomenally guilty.
Well, and as you talk about the speed that the wood chipper of justice is moving at, I mean, I'm just a layperson, and I'm going, okay, we have this hacker that is now talking, this Russian hacker that's talking to the FBI. We have the key figure behind the dossier, the Steele dossier, is going to face
Right.
questions from the Senate, right? I mean, it has the feel of a net closing, doesn't it?
Well, it absolutely does. And this is why, I think that after Charlottesville, Trump needed a re-motivational rally to re-energize himself, his own version of therapy. But there are significant changes within the scope of the investigation. I mean, they talked to Glenn Simpson. He's the the owner of Fusion GPS.
Right. Who funded the Steele dossier? Right. That's who I was referring to. Right.
He was contracted by right-wing billionaires to get information to knock Trump out, so Jeb Bush and Ted Cruz could get the nomination. And then he subcontracted Christopher Steele, and Christopher Steele created the dossier. And when they found this information out, they turned it over to John McCain, who brought it to the attention of the FBI. And right now, Glenn Simpson has been interviewed, and there's talk that Christopher Steele will be brought to the United States, or FBI agents will go to England and they will interview him on the record about what he found and what his sources were. That is documentary evidence now. Remember how I said?
Yep. Intelligence is not evidence. Right.
Until it gets in the hands of Justice Department.
And
the minute that he turns over a copy and starts swearing to that, that's evidence that can be used in a court of law or an impeachment.
In what I'm sure is a complete coincidence, as a reporter, Glenn Simpson specialized in coverage of money laundering and Russian organized crime.
Oh, coinky-dink.
Yes. Does that take any planning, Malcolm?
Takes a lot of planning. Law there.
Listen, Malcolm, also as a Navy man, obviously we want to talk to you about, and again, I have no idea, but we know the U.S. Navy has relieved the Admiral of Command after the fourth recent collision of our ships, and obviously the death of our sailors. There was this report on NPR the other day. I don't know if you heard about it. I'm sure you probably did, about some of these captains saying their GPS is totally screwed up, with a strong belief that Russians are hacking their GPS.
Well, that's the kind of evidence that can easily be found out, because GPS systems, especially when the signal arrives down to the vessel and gets caught into the ship systems and GPS processes, which we use for a lot of things, but a lot of people don't understand civilian GPS and military GPS are two entirely different things. The civilian GPS system operates on a constellation of, I think it's like 28 to 30 satellites, maybe more than that by now. Military GPS is a secure system that's within there. And although ship bridge navigation does rely on having, fish finders and commercial materials out there, the tankers don't, and they could be hacked and led astray. But I suspect the issue here is going to be fundamentally basic poor seamanship, and that the watchstanders on both cases were not aware, were not alert. The officers of the deck were not making changes to courses, because sometimes warships, you can get an attitude that you're the most powerful thing on the sea, therefore you have right of way in situations where a good seaman would say, I'm just going to yield, or kick, as we say, kick it in the rear and put some speed behind us. And they didn't. And they got struck, which is by these giant container ships, which is almost not impossible, but should not happen.
Right. Yeah. Malcolm, you first of all, as a terrorism expert, you talk, of all the lies and the ridiculous things that Trump keeps repeating, you talk about this when he said general pursing, this thing, you just said in all caps, you don't know what you're talking about. Stop repeating this myth, this thing that he dipped the bullets in pig's blood and blah, blah, blah. It is so dangerous, the rhetoric that he keeps trafficking in, isn't it?
Well, this rhetoric works strictly for terrorist groups. It works for Al-Qaeda. It works for ISIS. It motivates people, who are on the fence about giving material support to terrorist groups. And, like that old joke in the Onion last year, Muslim on the fence about joining ISIS, kicked off by Donald Trump.
Right.
You don't have to assist them by spouting these horrible, racist, bigoted myths. This reminds me of an incident that occurred when I was a young sailor. I'd come back from Beirut in 1983, and somebody called me from one of the intelligence shops, and they were planning an airstrike on Syria, and they said, hey, what time do Muslims pray in the morning? And as soon as they said it to me, I thought, you're not stupid enough to believe they all have their backs turned, right, facing towards Mecca. And when I told the guy, hey, they pray at their guns facing towards wherever we're coming from, they were so heartbroken that this little myth, was spoiled with facts. And that's what's going on with Trump. He uses these horrible racist lies, which they're not even myths, they're horrible lies. And as somebody said, they may have actually confused that with a sepoy rebellion in the 1800s in India, where ammunition cases were actually packed with pig's lard, and it created a rebellion that killed British officers. But Trump was never good on history.
Yeah, or anything. Yeah. Speaking of, you've been enjoying the crying Nazis as much as we have. You tweeted fascinating juxtaposition between hateful ideologues threatening force and what happens when they're met with democratic resistance. They crumble into tears. Yeah, I mean, and a lot of these rallies have been canceled now, thank God, because they've
I
seen
mean,
what happened in Boston and elsewhere.
I mean, how hard is it to find sympathy for a crying Nazi? Pretty hard.
Right.
But, I had, if for those of you who remember Politicon, the Politicon conference about 3 weeks ago, I got
Yeah.
pigeonholed on video by a white supremacist who goes by the name of Baked Alaska. And, he was asking me, why can't I say white power? Why can you guys say black pride? And I said, you can say it, but it doesn't mean what you think. When you say it the way you mean it, you get a frame by the counterterrorism community. If you
Yeah.
say, black power, you're going to get the historical frame of that until it's clarified. Poor guy goes to Charlottesville, gets bear mace in his face, right, and is asking people to pray for him because he went there and got injured in an activity where they were creating a wall of violence.
Right.
I feel sorry for him personally. I actually met the guy. When somebody you meet, you don't want to see anybody really harmed. But hey, when you come out espousing hate and you suffer injury, don't come back and say, well, you got to feel sympathy for me, even though I was chanting death to Jews. Jews will not replace us a few minutes earlier.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Malcolm, I know it's hard to predict what a complete lunatic is going to do, but I'm sure you've heard this guy that wrote The Art of the Deal said he thinks he's going to resign and claim victory. He said, I would be surprised if he lasts till fall. I mean, I don't know what you think in terms of, again, there's so many things that you think of, like in terms of Mueller, in terms of Congress, in terms of, pressure, in terms of, what comes out. What are you thinking? I know a few months ago you said you thought a few months.
Well, I think I said 8 to 10 months.
Right.
I think we're still on track. That would be early January, next February. But, there's a lot of wishful thinking out there, and God bless everybody who really wants to see the wood chipper of justice go into fourth gear. But what's happening here is a methodical dismantling. And, you have to give props to my Nostradamus skills, because I did predict on the Stephanie Miller show Paul Manafort's house would be raided.
Yes, you did.
Because whoever's not cooperating is getting a raid. And I gave a panel recently with a 30-year FBI veteran at the National Association of Black Journalists Conference, and he said he was on the SWAT team. They never did raids before 6 a.m. Even for drug lords, they would wait until they had coffee. They said a pre-dawn 6 a.m. raid meant the FBI prepared all night. They were in the office at midnight. They started rolling out in their cars at 4 a.m., and Manafort didn't know they were in the house until they entered his bedroom.
Yikes.
And that meant that they knew he was either in the process of destroying documents or was about to destroy documents, and they needed to get to them first.
Yeah.
So this is only going to accelerate, and this story's only going to get better. The question is if we can keep Donald Trump's finger off the nuclear button.
Yeah, exactly. Race against time. Malcolm, thanks as always, honey. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. I hope you're all scared now.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's what you do. That's your bag, baby.
And I do it well.
All right. Love you anyway. All right. Good night, honey. There he goes with the scary bedtime stories. Good night. Sleep well. All the people that really know stuff, like Malcolm and James Clapper, that's when it's even more terrifying.
Sobering,
right?
that's for sure.
Yeah. Yikes.